What's going on, everybody? Doug here, one of the host, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, here with a review roundup episode for you all this week. Possibly one of two review roundup episodes for you all this week. And happy July, everybody. I hope you're staying cool. I know it's been very humid everywhere, or like us out here in the West, it's been very dry as usual. But again, hope you're staying cool. Hope you have an amazing summer so far. Hope you have a great summer movie season as well. On this week's review roundup episode I have for you all, it is my reviews of 28 Years Later as well as Materialists, two completely different movies. If you heard my last few review episodes, you probably be hearing me saying this a lot, that I've been reviewing so completely opposite movies the past couple of weeks. So definitely staying on trend for sure, and on themed and on brand even. And I should be putting out a bonus review for you all, if not tomorrow, if not Friday, this week on the 4th, for my reviews of F1 as well as the Phoenician Scheme. That's right. I'm putting out my reactions to the channel right now. Look out for that. If you heard our Jurassic Park Jurassic World. I keep doing that too. Jurassic World episode. I mentioned that no full episode of the podcast this week. I mean, there was an episode of the podcast this week. It was again a bridge version of our review, me and Nick's review, non-spoiler review of Jurassic World Rebirth. Look out for that. That's now currently streaming on your favorite podcast platform and our YouTube channel. So that's out right now. So hopefully this will be a week of 3 episodes for you all. A regular episode, a bridge version of the episode of the podcast, and now these 2 review run-up episodes for you all. Again, hope you're having a great summer movie season so far. We're just getting started. I'm hyped that we have Superman coming up in a few weeks. Actually, next week. I'm seeing Superman in a week, which is really cool. And then I think what else do we have next week? That's kind of about it. And then maybe Eddington is coming out from Ari Aster, hearing a lot of controversy about that, very divisive. I think we also have I Know What You Did Last Summer in a few weeks, and we might be going to a screening of that. If there's an invite for that, we'll definitely look into that. I'm trying to think, what else do we have in a few weeks? And then we have Fantastic Four ending in July, and then week after that, I believe, is it Weapons? Weapons is one of my most anticipated movies of the year. I just love Zach Cregger, and I love Barbarian and the team behind Companion, as you all know. I'm trying to think, what else do we have upcoming? Naked Gun, I'm hyped for too. I'm looking for Naked Gun, as well as Nobody 2, a very a favorite of ours here at the podcast. But in the meantime, of course, guys, you can find this podcast, the full show of the podcast, The Genre of Your Life, at your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, you name it. Of course, our full video show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Whether you're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, subscribe, rate, please. We want to hear from you guys. Your feedback means the world to us. Again, our ongoing goal for the summer is 200 Apple Podcasts, so help us out there if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts. And of course, 1,000 subs on YouTube by end of summer. So we're getting there. I think we're at 760 now, which is really cool. We're working our way up for sure, but hitting those 2 goals will help us out so much with more coverage for access to screenings, of course, more access to more film festivals and events like that. So your feedback does mean a lot to us. Every little bit helps. So thank you all for the support, and thank you all for listening. It's been an honor for all of us. Speak for myself, but I want to speak for the guys as well. It's one of our biggest honors is doing this podcast every week. So we appreciate you all along for the ride with us as we navigate the show and the brand of Midway Ave. Alrighty, folks, like I said, on this week's review run-up episode, this is going to be my reviews of 28 Years Later and Materialist. I did a back-to-back double feature of this at my Regal. Again, we're still slowly planting the seeds for a Regal Limited sponsorship, because, me and Moses are both proud Regal Limited members. Shout out to Regal. And it's a very, again, opposite. Very 2 different movies to do a double feature, but I wanted to see Materials before it left theaters. But no, A24 tends to have a short window for some of their movies when it comes to performance on the box office, but I think it did pretty well for the most part. And 28 Years Later, if you guys saw my vlog about a month or 2 ago, I think it was in May, I went to go see 28 Days Later for the first time on the big screen. Thanks to Sony for bringing that back for one night only in preparation and prep, also anticipation for 28 years later. So I just watched that 28 years later 28 Days Later for the first time. Shame on me for taking so long to watch that movie. That movie was awesome. I loved it. A lot of my buddy Curtis, a lot of people at work were telling me, you gotta watch it, man. You gotta watch it, man. It's so good. And being that I am a big fan of Cillian Murphy, Naomi Harris, and Danny Boyle as well, I just kind of was definitely upset with myself that took me that long. 23 years ago watched it? I think 02, but I was like 5 when that first one came out. But still in my adult years and now being a more newer horror fan the last couple years, I was just like, why did I put it off so long? But I'm really glad that my first time watching that was on the big screen because it was a packed house. It was cool showing. They also gave us really cool insight to what's the insight? No, it was like a 10-minute extended preview of 28 years later that got me even more hyped to see that movie. So let's get into it, shall we? All right, so 28 years later, this one is causing a lot of controversy. Controversy might be a strong word, but a lot of division. And I remember when the embargo lifted, and people were hearing their it was like the first reactions or whatever, and it was like, great, but ending sucked. And I was like, that's pretty harsh. Or it's good, but XYZ. And I'm like, all right. So, it's definitely cool to see both Danny Boyle and Alex Garland come back to this one. Danny Boyle directed the first one, and Alex Garland wrote the first one, but they did not come back for 28 weeks later, which I thought was decent. It wasn't great as the first one, but I thought it was, decent. With that said, though, 28 years later follows. It's been almost 3 decades since the rage virus escaped from a biological weapons laboratory. Still living in ruthlessly enforced quarantine, somehow found ways to exist amid the infected. One such group of survivors lives on a small island connected to the mainland by a single heavily defended causeway. When one of them decides to venture in the dark heat of the mainland, he soon discovers a mutation that has spread to not only the infected, but other survivors as well, which is a pretty good pitch. Is it just me, or are these synopses getting longer and longer? For the past few weeks, I'm just definitely a bit longer than the other ones we've kind of read earlier this year, if not last year. And currently, again, if you care about this stuff, 28 years later is doing pretty well critic-wise on Rotten Tomatoes with 89, but audience not so much. Audience 64, which is still a fresh popcorn rating. But usually you see kind of more of a similarity between the audience and the critics. For the most part, you will see sometimes critics loved it, audiences hated it, or vice versa. Audiences loved it, critics didn't like it. So, but it's kind of surprising. This one is very the gap between audience and critic score. But again, I was hearing a lot of things out of the first screenings. It was this movie is very divisive, and I was like, it seems like Alex Garland likes to be that way for some reason. I don't know what it is. I think Alex Garland likes being divisive in his movies. I'll be very honest with you. I feel again, I haven't seen all his movies, but from what I've heard from most of his movies and what I've seen from his movies, he likes to be very controversial, yeah, but he's definitely a filmmaker that likes to kind of cause discussion, both I would say positive and negative. And yeah, if you heard my review of Civil War last year, I was not a fan of that movie, but I definitely was. I thought Warfare was incredible and still in my top 10 halfway during the year. And Danny Boyle, I absolutely love Steve Jobs, and that movie is criminally underrated. I like Slumdog Millionaire. It's a bit overhyped for me a little bit at the time when I saw it. I did again 20 years later. Trainspotting is good. Don't love it either. I heard T2 is pretty solid sequel. I thought Yesterday, the one he did with the Beatles, the one with who was it? I think it's Himesh Patel. I thought it was very charming in that. Yesterday, the one where he's the last person to remember who the Beatles were and no one else does. Thought it was came out during a busy summer of 2019 and kind of came and went. I have it on 4K. I think it's a very underrated movie. It's a sweet message too. But with that said, this is now them returning to the franchise 23 years later, not doing the second one. I gotta say this. It's controversy aside or division aside, I think the movie itself is good. It's not great. It's good. I think the biggest problem you hear from this movie, and from myself too, is that it feels like 2, sometimes 3 different movies into one. I think the first half's a bit stronger. I like the setup of like where we are now in the world. First off, the opening scene is brutal. The opening scene that you probably see in the trailer, it was like the kids watching Teletubbies, and that's all I'm going to say, because it just gets bombastic and brutal in the first 5 minutes. You're just like, holy shit. And they definitely set the mood of like what we're in store for. Like, it's been now. We're catching up right where we left off with these movies, and surprisingly, they do definitely do a little bit of a recap of 28 weeks. They used some footage from 28 weeks later. I was kind of surprised that they used that. I was like, interesting. But I would say the first half, I think, is much stronger. I think it's like the setup and the reintroduction to the world we're in, introduction to like new characters, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, Jodie Comer's character, and this new kid. His name is. I put it in my review too. Alfie Williams. I'll tell you what, Alfie Williams, this kid playing Spike, newcomer. Watch this kid, man. This kid has a ton of talent, and I was very impressed with his acting because he has to hold this movie really on his own post the first half, because it becomes his movie. But again, not knowing who he was, I like they didn't cast Chalamet or Tom Holland or Cody Smith McPhee. Like, I'm glad the cast is unknown, because I feel like if it was a relatively known actor, I'd be like, I'm just seeing this person. But I think to Danny Boyle's credit, so was Alex Garland's credit, is that they went with an unknown, and you kind of feel more of the stakes. You feel more of like the connection to the characters. And also, I thought Aaron Taylor Johnson as the dad was, again, I think he's a really good actor. I think he kind of picks some things that he's not so good in or not so great, i.e. Kraven the Hunter. But again, he also was really good as the dad, and just the connection between him and his son, Jamie, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Alfie Williams, who plays Spike. How complex they are between father and son. I like that. It wasn't kind of like cookie cutter. It was very complex. And also too, all the stress that they added with, now being in this world. How do you raise a kid in this world when you're quarantined, and also you're raising a son who has to live in this world, kind of fight for his own and really kind of like survive. I thought it was a very interesting approach and angle to it. With that said, though, once the first half goes, the second half becomes this very, people are calling coming of age. Yeah, coming of age, but also very just kind of like Stand By Me thing. With his mom played with Jodie Comer, who at first, I am a huge Jodie Comer fan. Ever since I saw her in Free Guy, I thought she's phenomenal in Free Guy. At first, I was like, are they kind of wasting Jodie Comer? Like, I feel like they're kind of wasting her talent, because she's a phenomenal actress. And I was like, I don't know about this. Again, I don't want to like spoil it for you guys, but Jodie Comer is suffering from a certain illness, I'll say, and them not having connection to the real world anymore, or still being quarantined. They don't know what her illness is, but the way Jodie Comer has to kind of like play this, it is very scary. It's very sad. It's very emotional. You're like, oh man, you feel for her. But again, the tone really shifts entirely once her and her son Spike, played by Alfie Williams, go on this adventure. You're like, what is this now? And the in between, I was kind of lost me for a bit, where I'm like, I like where this was going at first. But now I'm kind of like, ooh, it just feels very, I say shallow, but very like, I don't know about this. I kind of felt like it wasn't really capturing my interest. It was, but still though, I thought she was still very good, despite not me loving her character and her performance right away. There's a lot of twists and turns in the second act. You're just like, okay, where's this gonna go? What's gonna happen? Whatever. And there's this movie is very morose, very morose. Morose and morbid. Morbid is what I'm going to say. Morbid. It's a very morbid. It is very grotesque. It's very graphic, and definitely up the stakes from the last two movies, because I feel like they definitely double down on the gore, on the violence, and this kind of just like the uncomfortableness I hear feeling of the infected and the zombies. But there's some stuff where I had to look away, because I was like, I can't watch this. I kind of feel sick to my stomach. I kind of feel gross. And if you heard my review for Bring Her Back, I had a similar feeling, but I was definitely more disturbed in Bring Her Back than I was in this movie. But with that said, there are a lot of things in this movie where I just felt really kind of like just grossed out. Again, I had a popcorn too, where I'm like, I had to stop ordering popcorn during these horror and really kind of grotesque movies because I'm then wasting popcorn. I'm not going to eat now because I'm kind of just feeling kind of grossed out and kind of sick. But I was still engaged with the second half, even though I wasn't liking it as much. But I still kind of was interested in what was going to happen. And they introduced some characters where I'm like, oh, okay, like, they introduced some things about, again, them being quarantined, of like, well, who is in quarantine? How are they reacting to the UK and this part of the world being quarantined 28 years later? That was interesting. It tried to become a little bit humorous. Again, it's a very heavy film, and there was times of humor and like levity, but sometimes the humor didn't really feel like it kind of fit at times. Unfortunately, there was a funny thing with a soldier character and Spike. I was like, okay, this is kind of funny, kind of like kind of lightens the mood a little bit, but also kind of just felt kind of just like thrown in there kind of randomly. Oh, yeah, this thing, whatever. What this is? It's like, well, no, because they're being quarantined. However, I think the movie kind of picks up steam again once they introduce to Ray Fiennes' character, and Ray Fiennes' character plays this doctor who's kind of been a little bit outcasted from the shelter that Spike and Aaron Taylor Johnson's character and Jodie Comer's character are from, and it's kind of a misdirect of what we're told to believe Ray Fiennes' character. But Ray Fiennes in this is phenomenal. He is he's a phenomenal actor. Think about it. I grew up watching him as Voldemort, but from Schindler's List to James Bond, you name it. The dude's just one of the best actors working today, if not of all time. And him playing Dr. Ian Kelson, I was like, oh, I'm intrigued now because again, the menu wasn't a fan of the menu, but he was very good in the menu. But when he's introduced, you're kind of like, oh, whoa, and they introduce this whole new angle to it. Some people aren't liking what the character represents or what kind of he does or how the story kind of goes when introduced. It didn't bother me because the movie gets very more emotional once we're introduced to his character and as we see him more of him and how he interacts with Jodie Comer and Spike's character, Alfie Williams' character. And I like that because I was like, oh, this is bringing the more humanity to the story and the emotional aspect to it. But I was hearing from a lot of other friends, a lot of other critics, that they just did not like once that character was introduced. They were like, this kind of feels like kind of weird and rushed. And I can't argue with that to an extent, but the emotionality and also the humanity that is brought to when Ray Fiennes is introduced and what has to happen to some of these characters, I was like, oh, this is really sad, but it kind of makes sense. But it didn't bother me personally, but I do understand where people are coming from in terms of kind of like its frustration. But I thought he made the movie a lot better for me once he was brought on screen, and I was kind of like, oh, I'm definitely more. I'm back. I'm captured again by the world, whatever, and now what's going to happen next? And then, as the story progresses a little bit towards the end, it again changes into a third movie, and I'm like, well, because also there's an actor who I'm a fan of who was supposed to be in this movie, and I was like, well, we haven't seen him yet, so where is he? I won't say who. And when it happens, you're kind of like, first off, the movie is a big setup for another movie, and you might know they filmed two back-to-back. Nia DaCosta, who did the Candyman remake, I thought it was a pretty damn good reboot of Candyman, is doing the second one. Alex Garland came back to write the script, but Danny Boyle would be as a producer. I would say the second half of the movie and then the end is a massive setup for a sequel. And I'm not a huge fan when films or even shows like set up all this for a cliffhanger or for a tease for a sequel, because it's like, well, you should be focusing on like making this a full, complete story first, and then we go from there. But I do feel like that's why I was a big fan of the first half of this movie compared to the second half, because it felt like more of a complete film, while the second half feels like a big kind of like teaser trailer for what's to come in the second film. I believe they announced the third film. The second one does pretty well. This one did pretty well for the most part, but I wonder how well the second one will do, despite its very divisive ending. The reaction to that one, but the ending kind of just feels so out of place and does not fit the movie at all. I wasn't like too bothered by it. I wasn't like, oh my God. People I know also were like, what the hell? This is a big F you to what we just kind of saw in this 2-hour movie. And I do think that runtime's a bit long. I think it's like 155. If you feel the runtime a little bit, or you feel like it kind of feels rushed towards the second half. But when the movie ends, you're just like, now I gotta wait for that. It's like, I think they were more focused on setting up a bigger picture. That's totally fine. But I do think even in 28 days, 28 weeks later, it feels like a more of a complete film. Yes, there's a bit tease of like what's to come in both those films, but they still feel like complete movies. Where this feels like a big setup for a big trailer for a next movie. And again, I will definitely be seeing the next movie, but I'm not gonna say I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait for the next one. I'm intrigued, but I'm not like excited the way I was to see this one. I was kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. I think practicality wise, I was really impressed with the practicality of this movie. I like that Danny Boyle shot the film. If you don't know, it's been all over TikTok and social media and the news. The first one shot on a very kind of like DVD video camera at the time, very innovative at the time, and it made it made the film kind of feel more real. This one shot on an iPhone 15 Pro, the same phone that I'm using right now to record this podcast, or the podcast with the guys every week. So I do like how Danny Boyle still likes to push the narrative storytelling with technology, whether it's a handheld kind of video camera or now an iPhone 15 Pro. It's like, again, but they for sure pimp out this iPhone. Don't get me wrong. They have all these attachments, these rigs to it. I mean, it's probably the most like pimped out iPhone you'll ever see, and it's definitely industry standard for a big studio movie like this. But with that said, though, if you see all the behind the scenes stuff, I'm trying to pull up the video photos here too. The behind the scenes stuff is really cool because again, they're showing all this stuff of how it was filmed on a rig, a bunch of different iPhones. And again, I do think you hear a lot of things. You hear Spielberg. You hear there's a phone right there, iPhone 15 Pro. And I'm trying to find the photo I was going with the. Oh, there it is. All these phones, right? Again, if you're watching on the video element of the show, you'll see this huge rig they made of just iPhones. And again, for our audio listeners, definitely look up how this was filmed because it is very fascinating. But again, I do like how when a lot of filmmakers, I know Spielberg did too, is that a lot of them are pushing, hey, listen, you don't need a fancy, super fancy, expensive camera. You can film with an iPhone. You can make a movie on an iPhone. You can make a movie with like a pretty affordable camera. And I do like that when filmmakers preach that, they also practice that too, and definitely uphold their preaching to it. So innovative wise, I was definitely, from a filmmaking technical aspect, I was very impressed with this. I was like, wow, this movie looks phenomenal to be shot on an iPhone. Again, even though it was pimped out and had like cool attachments and rigs to it, still a studio movie that costs about $60 million on an iPhone, that's pretty damn cool. And again, it's keeping the theme of what they did with the first one being shot on a video camera. So technical wise, I was very impressed with the film. Practicality wise too, there are some really cool and also really gnarly practical effects on the zombies and the affected, where I was like, ugh. And also too, you're probably hearing a lot about this in other reviews. Be prepared to see a lot, and I mean a lot of full frontal zombie genitalia. I was not expected to see all of this genitalia, where I was like, wow, it's graphic, it's in your face. Our friend Nino has a funny joke of calling it 28 inches later. If you know, and you've seen the movie, you will definitely understand when you do. And so, again, I do think zombie movies are definitely more effective when when you have practical effects and special effects and makeup. Again, it's like, it makes it feel more real, makes it feel more kind of eerie and creepy and frightening. But with that said, though, I didn't love this movie the way I wanted to love, the way I loved 28 Days Later, being a new fan of it. I would still say go see it. I'm not raving about it. I do have a problem with a lot of when films kind of just switch up what it was halfway through, or try to introduce a lot of things in a short amount of time. Well, this movie's still 2 hours, but you definitely feel like a lot of ideas were being thrown at once and try to kind of mesh them all together. And it's like, you gotta probably let the movie kind of breathe and let it be what it has to be first if you want to introduce more of a story down the road. So I would give 28 Years Later, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. Yeah, it would still be fresh. I'm kind of teetering a 6.5 out of 7. If it was Rotten Tomatoes, it would be fresh in my scale. But yeah, maybe 6.5. 6.5, I think it would be kind of a fair score. If you are a fan of the other movies, I would say go see it. I mean, it's definitely fun to see it with a crowd and see it on the big screen. Definitely a movie like this, I think definitely deserves to have the theatrical experience. Will you miss anything if you don't see it on the big screen? I'll be honest, not really, but I would still persuade you to go see. If you're a fan of the horror, you're a fan of the zombie genre, and Danny Boyle, Alex Garland, the cast, the crew, and the overall concept and the franchise itself, yeah, it's definitely worth seeing in theaters, but not premium. I would say go see it like a regular screen, whatever. But I still enjoyed it for what it was, despite all my flaws and kind of issues with it. And the ending still was kind of like, the ending would have been a better post-credit scene than the actual ending of the film, if that makes sense. And when you see it, you understand. If you've seen it already, you definitely understand where I'm coming from. So yeah, I give 28 Years Later a decent score of 6.5 out of 10. Alrighty, guys. So moving on from 28 years and full of zombie genitalia, I have my review of Materialists, a movie that's also been a bit, I would say, divisive. And I do think, I like the word divisive because it's like you might either hate this movie or love this movie, but a lot of times I feel like I'm kind of in the middle where I'm like, yeah, it's just kind of fine. Like, I'm trying to think of the last movie I like people loved I did not like, where I'm like, you're insane for this. I feel like we've been really in the majority, or I don't know. That's true. I mean, Megan I didn't like, but Nick liked it. Jurassic I didn't like, and Crix didn't like it, and Crix didn't like Megan too either. But I'm trying to think of a movie that everyone loved, and I was like Lilo and Stitch got okay reviews, but I think I was in the kind of majority of people like who loved the first one were kind of like, eh. I'm trying to think the last movie that people loved, and I was like, man, y'all wrong for this. But not wrong for this, but I was in the complete opposite. I can't think of it. If I do, I'll definitely bring it up. But anyway, Materialists, a movie that I was hearing from, again, friends and colleagues too, that either liked it or did not like it at all. And it's going to be, okay, anyway, for some backstory, Materialists is the new A24 movie. A24 is really known to put out these really, original, really either weird and unique stories. But again, A24 kind of built the reputation off of making really wildly original and very unique films. Materialist follows a young New York City matchmaker. Matchmaker's lucrative business gets complicated as she finds herself torn between the perfect match and her imperfect ex. And this stars Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. 3 great actors. I would say I think Chris Evans hasn't had the best luck with his movies post Avengers. Knives Out, he was good, Knives Out, but since Knives Out and this, I don't think he's picked the best roles from what I've seen him in. I thought that movie Ghosted was terrible. I couldn't get through the one, Pain Hustlers, the one he did with Emily Blunt. I was halfway through and I said, yeah, I'm out. This was not for me. Dakota Johnson, I remember watching her ever since Social Network. Didn't watch the 50 Shades movies. No interest to me personally. I'm trying to think. Madam Web was rough. Madam Web was definitely rough. But what has she been in that? I'm like, she wasn't bad in this. Dakota Johnson. Let's see. Social Network. Madam Web was Oh, you know what she was really good in? She was phenomenal. Oh, also El Royale. She was great in El Royale. No doubt about it. That movie is super underrated. Go watch El Royale. I thought she was really good in that. But she was really, really charming and great in Peanut Butter Falcon, a movie that I have a close connection to. Having a brother with Down syndrome, like that movie meant a lot to me. And seeing my brother kind of see himself on the big screen, I thought both Shia LaBeouf, despite it's controversy right now, I thought what Shia LaBeouf and Dakota Johnson did in that movie was very beautiful, and also it was really sweet that they kind of worked with this actor with Down syndrome. It was very, again, I gained more points in my book. Also, she's also really good in Cha Cha Real Smooth, a very underrated movie that I watched when the podcast began a couple years ago, also on Apple TV, worth checking out. But again, Madam Web, not good, and you can definitely tell she was like just in it just for the paycheck, because no one on that movie cared. As a massive Spider-Man fan, I even knew who Madam Web was. I went in just unbiased. I heard bad things about it. I remember watching it at home, and I was like, "This was not good. This is not good." But I'm like, "Oh my god, fuck this movie!" It just wasn't a good movie. But you won't hear me, harp on it as much as other people did. It just wasn't good, and then was kind of just been beaten to the ground of like how bad it is. I'll leave it at that. But again, I thought Dakota Johnson is really good in this. I think it might be her best role probably since Peanut Butter Falcon. I mean, again, she was good in Cha Cha Real Smooth. But I thought she definitely had more, just more of a performance, I believe, in Peanut Butter Falcon. Pedro Pascal, who I'm a fan of, I've been a fan of his since seeing him in the second Kingsman, Golden Circle. However, I will say he's starting to get a little oversaturated. I think he's in too much stuff. And, you know, we had this convo last week at the screen after the screening of Megan. It was me, myself, Nick. Oh, sorry, me, myself, and I. No, myself, Nick, our friends Nino and Seth, our friend Isaac, and we were kind of saying like, he's a good actor, but man, he's in too much stuff from all the franchises, from, you know, Kingsman to DC, now to Marvel, now to Star Wars, now to this, now to Eddington. My man, you can say no to some things. And I know like the whole thing of acting is that you gotta enjoy the ride while it lasts because it doesn't last forever. True, people would agree, okay. But I feel like we see you in too much stuff now where it's just like, Last of Us already. You pull back a little bit. Because I think, you know, once you're oversaturated, it's like, dude, you gotta pick and choose more wisely of like, you know, what you're in and what you're gonna pick. I feel like once you're in too much stuff, it's like, dude, we see you in a lot of stuff. Like I see you as Pedro Pascal, and I don't see you as these actors, as these characters. And yeah, I'm on record. I wasn't a fan of his casting of Mr. Fantastic and Fantastic Four, the reboot, the third reboot, remake, whatever. But again, he was good in Triple Frontier. He was good in Kingsman. He was good in Last of Us. He's great in The Mandalorian. But I think he's just picking a lot of stuff just to be like, hey, look, I'm in this movie. It's like, dude, pull back a little bit. I am looking forward to seeing what he does with Joaquin in Eddington. But I just feel like it's just too much of him right now. And with that said, I think this movie, I think also is mismarketed. I think the movie marketed itself as like a kind of like a young and fun rom-com of this modern age, kind of like the throwback to the 90s and early 2000s rom-com, like very Nora Ephron, Rob Reiner, Woody Allen from back then kind of vibe. And yes and no, where you definitely feel the vibes of Nora Ephron, you know, and you've got Mel a little bit. You got a little bit of, you know, Harry Massalia with, you know, Rob Reiner. You got a little bit of Annie Hall from Woody Allen. Like Celine Song, who did this movie, captures New York as its own character, like those other filmmakers did with their movies. Like they did a very good job kind of like honoring NYC as a character and making it feel like a character of its own and setting the vibe of these characters for sure. Don't get me wrong. But the movie, the trailers and marketing was like, oh, it's kind of like a fun rom-com. From me personally, it felt like almost like, oh yeah, it's like a modern day Hitch, but from the woman's perspective. I'm like, oh, I kind of like that. And the first half of the movie is kind of like that. But then the movie takes a very dark and depressing turn where I won't spoil it, but like it takes a turn. You're just like, oh shit! It's very serious, and it's a very heavy subject matter that they focus on, and it's also it's a topic that definitely should be discussed more, and you know, be brought more in conversation, or whatever. But I don't think the movie definitely pitches itself as something that it's not. Where again, it's a funny, cheeky rom-com for the modern day dating era. And I said in my reaction on Twitter, I'm pulled right here actually, how it's a very complex you know, love story for the modern day dating. And here, what did I say? Here, I'll pull up on my Twitter. Or sorry, X. This is calling it. I'm still calling it Twitter. Me. Here we go. Here we go. I said Materialists showcases the emotional complexity of modern dating and the risks that come with love. Celine Song's direction is sharp. Her dialogue is very rich. Definitely, I said, it'll be darker than expected. A bit too long at times, but Johnson, Evans, and Pascal all bring top-tier performances. So yes, the movie itself, Ian, it shows the complexity of modern dating and the risks that come with love. As someone who's in this dating, you know, who's dating again, in this dating era, I will say there was times where I was like, oh, very relatable. I can relate to that character or this situation. I've been there before. I know that's like before, from, you know, previous partners to, you know, going on dates. I was like, oh yeah, there's definitely kind of a lot of, you know, relatability and realness to the movie itself. However, the movie kind of spends a little too long on, I'm gonna say shallowness, but it focuses on things you're kind of just like, okay, maybe just tighten the focus a little bit on what you want to say with this. And I will say that I thought the chemistry between Pedro Pascal and Dakota Johnson was not there. I think that might have been part of the movie because, again, she's this matchmaker. He's this really rich, you know, they call him a unicorn, like, rich, wealthy, handsome, established, good family, all that. But the whole time I'm like, yeah, I don't believe that they're in love at all. And again, she even says in the movie, Dakota Johnson says, like, I'm looking for a rich man that can take care of me. And I think, talking to friends, talking to people in dating life, a lot of people kind of have that, like, not a preconceived idea, but a lot of people have that kind of in their head of like, oh, I want this is a kind of a checklist of like what they want. And I think Celine's song definitely kind of like highlights that definitely in the movie. But when you're watching the movies, you do not believe that Dakota Johnson and Pedro Pascal are an item or they're in love at all. But again, this could be just me. That might be part of the movie where it's like you don't want to believe that they're in love because again, she's in it for this, for the money and for the wealth. He's in it for love. There's on two different levels. But I will say that I definitely felt the chemistry between her and Dakota Johnson and Chris Evans a lot more. And like I said, I thought Chris Evans kind of like drops his kind of like, tough guy thing and definitely kind of played more of a vulnerable, very emotionally aware character. But also, he's also a struggling actor as well. And again, it's, he's very charming, he's very handsome himself. It's you definitely believe he's kind of playing this kind of like, down on his luck, can't pay rent. I mean, rent's really cheap, but like has 4 roommates, place is a shit show. It's kind of gross. And that kind of adds to the realness of the movie because I know I've had friends, I've been with roommates are just, who live with people who have been really sloppy and gross. I've had bad roommates where I'm just like, oh, come on, man, seriously? So that part I was like, yep, can relate to for sure. But I do think Chris Evans, what I said about this being his best performance since I think Knives Out, he gets to kind of break down all this kind of just this like macho-ness to his other roles and plays this kind of as a really real guy who's just struggling because he wants love. He wants to be back with Dakota Johnson's character because they were an item for so long. But again, how do you start over again? How do you have her fall in love with you when you kind of come from nothing? You have nothing, but the love is still there. But now she's in love with Pedro Pascal's character. So that I liked a lot because also I did feel the chemistry between her and Dakota Johnson and Chris Evans a lot. Like I said, though, the movie's 2 hours, and you definitely feel the runtime. Definitely feel the runtime, where at one point I was kind of like, this is the end, right? And I thought it was ending. Nope, 10 more minutes. Okay, 10 more minutes go by. Okay, cool. This is for sure the end. Nope, 10 more minutes. And I'm like, huh, okay. Interesting. It's one of those films that like could have ended 3 separate times, and you kind of feel like it's a bit prolonged. And towards the end, there were some character decisions where I was like, yeah, that would not happen. That would not happen. Or no, what happened? And then there's really kind of there's when, again, I'm not trying to spoil it for you, but when this kind of reveal happens midway in the movie, Dakota Johnson kind of wears this very like stalkerish, but very kind of like questionable, like Inspector Gadget / Raphael from the original Ninja Turtles live action movie kind of wears. I'll show you, like, Raphael Ninja Turtle like this trench coat, like, again, very Inspector Gadget. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, like this, had this kind of weird like hat on and everything. I was like, what? But again, for our listeners, look up Raphael Ninja Turtle trench coat. You're gonna be like, she wore that. It was very similar. I was like, yeah, wait a second. It's that's kind of weird. It's something's kind of weird. Like, yeah, that shouldn't be happening. But again, towards the end, there's something that happens with the character that Dakota Johnson has to, like, run something from being at an event. You're like, no, that wouldn't make sense. That does not make sense. And there were small things like that where I'm like, I don't know if that would happen in real life, or that would happen really in this kind of situation. And talking to some friends about it too, they kind of felt the same way. We're like, they're like, yeah, that wouldn't happen. That makes no sense. And I was like, okay, cool. And I thought I was on the same page about it. But overall, I did like Celine's song. Again, it's a real movie, shot in New York in real locations. And again, it's A24 is definitely known for a low budget, high concept, low budget filmmaking. And I did like that this movie felt like movies that I remember watching with, again, from the 90s, from Nora Ephron, again, Woody Allen, the early Woody Allen films, and even Rob Reiner films. So I definitely appreciate what she was going for. I still have to watch Past Lives. People love that movie. My buddy Ray at work loves that movie so much. So I will for sure watch it this summer, because I thought her writing was very, very sharp and very real. I do like, as a writer myself, me and Nick Moses were all writers. When the writing dialogue stands out to me and watching a movie, I'm like, oh, I like how this writing is. I like how this is going. Like, again, it just feels real. And again, it feels like a film that's very for, quote unquote mature audiences. What Sean Baker was saying during his press tour of Anora, he was saying that, like, where are the lower budget films for adults? Like, there aren't like the rated R action movies and the superhero stuff. It's like, where are the kind of like the humane and the very adult, not adult, but like films that are made for the grown-ups. And I feel like A24 and Neon definitely invest in films like that, and this one as well. So even though I had some storytelling decision issues with this movie where I was like, and I thought the pacing was a little bit rough, I still liked Celine Song's direction. I liked the acting in this, despite not feeling the chemistry between Pedro Pascal and Dakota Johnson. But I thought everyone brought their A game. The score was great. The music and score were phenomenal. The soundtrack was really good too. And again, I just like movies about real people and real situations like this, and just the vibe of how Celine Song caught this like modern day dating life, both. I mean, that's very timely, but also New York centric as well. So I would give Materialist a solid 7 out of 10. Yeah, I think some of my friends were like, no, that wouldn't work, whatever. But there were parts where I really enjoyed, where I'm like, wow, this is just really top tier filmmaking. But then there are times where I'm just like, this does not make sense, or it kind of feels like prolonged a bit. But solid 7 out of 10. It would be a fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. We are still working on trying to figure out our own rating scale. Like, we have a few ideas in mind of like, we kind of like make it unique for us, of like, okay, a rating scale this way. We're kind of like, 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 is very kind of like plain generic, or like 2 thumbs up, 1 thumb up, whatever. Like, we want to have our own rating system, so look out for that. Like I said, I give Materialist 7 out of 10. It's still playing, and if you are, again, I think it's definitely a movie to like, again, not really a comedy. It is definitely a drama with moments of humor sprinkled in here and there, but not the way that the trailers and marketing kind of lead you to believe. But with that said, I still enjoyed it. Again, both movies kind of similar score. Like I said, 28 years later was 6.5. This was 7 out of 10. So I definitely, again, a weird double feature for sure on a Sunday afternoon at a Regal, but glad I did before they left theaters. But hey guys, that is this week. This is probably episode one. This is a review run-up episode for you all. Should be another one this week before the holiday, if not on the 4th of July. But again, hope you're all staying safe and cool in the summertime. Hope you're enjoying this. Hope you're enjoying a nice movie season, whether it's going to get big icy or get a big popcorn. Like I said, guys, we have a lot more in store for you as the month begins. So stay safe, stay well, and of course, more importantly, we will see you guys at the movies.